My drunk ex showed up the night before his wedding, then disappeared. I was with my ex for 2 years. It wasn't the best relationship, and we broke up because I moved away for university, and honestly, I just didn't want to be with him anymore. There were no explosive fights or betrayals, just the slow realization that we weren't right for each other. That was almost 5 years ago. Since then, I've moved on, and I'm now engaged to my fiancé, who, without a doubt, is my soulmate. My ex and I haven't spoken much since the breakup, aside from a few obligatory happy birthday messages over the years. So, when he suddenly showed up at my door the night before his wedding, drunk out of his mind, I was completely caught off guard. The unexpected visit. It was around 10 p.m. My fiancé and I were settling in for the night when the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting anyone, so we were immediately wary. When my fiancé opened the door, there stood my ex, completely wasted, his eyes red and puffy. At first, he didn't even acknowledge my fiancé. Instead, he looked straight past him and mumbled my name. Then, out of nowhere, he started sobbing. Between hiccups and slurred words, he managed to say, "I can't believe he's real." At first, I thought he was joking or playing some weird drunk game. But no, he was completely serious. He kept repeating it over and over, like he was trying to convince himself that my fiancé was an actual person. I couldn't even process what was happening. It was surreal. We let him in. Big mistake? My fiancé and I exchanged looks. My ex didn't seem violent, just absolutely wasted and emotionally wrecked. Against our better judgment, we let him in to sit down for a bit, mostly because he looked like he was going to collapse. And that's when the floodgates really opened. For the next 20 minutes, he unloaded everything. His regrets, his pain, his lingering feelings about our breakup. He admitted that he never truly moved on, that he always believed we could have made it work if things had been different, that he wished he had treated me better back then. I just sat there in stunned silence. What was I even supposed to say? My fiancé was also completely baffled, but kept his composure, standing nearby with his arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable. Then, my ex suddenly lurched forward and made a beeline for the bathroom. That's when he vomited, violently, twice. It was as if the emotional purge wasn't enough. His body needed to expel everything too. Damage control. After he was done emptying his stomach, he slumped onto the floor, groaning. My fiancé grabbed some towels while I, unsure of what else to do, went to make some coffee and waffles to sober him up a little. Once he regained some semblance of consciousness, he groggily apologized for barging in like that. He said he had been out for his bachelor party with his friends and somehow ended up deciding that he had to see me one last time before getting married. Why? He wasn't sure. At this point, my fiancé stepped in. He asked my ex if he really thought it was appropriate to show up at his ex-girlfriend's house the night before his own wedding to unload all his regrets. My ex, to my surprise, actually nodded. "I know it's wrong," he mumbled, "but I couldn't help it." Then, as if things couldn't get any stranger, he pulled out his phone and called an Uber. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Back to my hotel," he muttered. "Or wherever." Wherever. That didn't sit right with me. Before he stumbled out the door, I told him to text us when he got back to his hotel, just to make sure he was safe. And that was it. The dilemma. Should I tell his fiancée? After he left, I was left with this weird, dirty feeling, almost like I had done something wrong, even though I knew I hadn't. I kept asking myself, should I tell his fiancée? I wasn't thinking about it to be malicious. I wasn't trying to break them up. It was just, if I were her, I'd want to know. I'd want to know that my soon-to-be husband was having an emotional breakdown over his ex the night before our wedding. I took to Reddit, hoping for some clarity, but the responses were just as torn as I was. Some people said I had to tell her. Others said it wasn't my place. In the end, I decided against it. We weren't friends. It wasn't my business. Instead, I messaged his sister, an old friend of mine, to let her know what had happened and to check on him. And then, he went missing. The next day, my phone rang. It was his sister. She sounded panicked. "Did he come back to your place?" she asked. Apparently, my ex hadn't shown up for his wedding. No one knew where he was. So at this point, telling his fiancée was pointless. He had disappeared, just like that. Final update. He ran away. To France? Days later, the truth finally came out. My ex broke off the engagement. He called his fiancée and told her he couldn't go through with it. Just like that, the wedding was off. His fiancée, understandably, was devastated. She even reached out to me, at first, accusing me of sleeping with him. But after a long conversation, she realized I had nothing to do with his decision. Meanwhile, his sister called again with another wild detail. My ex had vanished for days, and when he finally resurfaced, he was in France. Oh, and get this. Before he left, he stole one of my lipsticks. Apparently, he admitted it to his sister, who then PayPal'd me the money to buy a new one. I hadn't even noticed it was missing. After everything, I just felt numb. I wasn't angry, just baffled. His sister apologized for everything, and I asked how she and his ex-fiancée were doing. She just sighed and said, "It's a mess. Everyone's furious." And honestly, I didn't ask for more details. I didn't want to know. So that's it. That's the story. What do you guys think? Should I have told his fiancée that night? Or was it best to stay out of it? Let me know in the comments.
Subscribe for more.